Backyard Brawl. We're heading into the Backyard Brawl this week, and we're going to do a preview on the battle between West Virginia and Pitt coming up September 1st on a Thursday night. There's going to be a number of conventional storylines that you're going to hear from the other folks. We'll cover those briefly, and then we're going to do a quick preview of Pitt. ESPN Game Day is going to be there. West Virginia and Pitt were in the same conference for years and years and had years of a rivalry about 70 miles apart. They split. One went to the ACC, Pitt went to the ACC, West Virginia went to the Big 12. Now they've resumed their series again in Pittsburgh on a Thursday night.
You know, the last time we played them was in 2011. That was our last time the last year we played in the Big East. I don't know if they were in the ACC yet, but it was in Morgantown, and we did win that game. So it's been 11 years. So a lot of these players don't know anything about this rivalry, but a lot of us older folks know a whole lot about it.
It's a rivalry for the two towns and the fans and the alumni, but the kids, lots of the kids don't know it. To make it another storyline that you're going to hear about is both quarterbacks have played under the same offensive coordinator at Southern California. Their quarterback, a fellow named Slovis, and our quarterback, Deshields, were both in Southern Cal under Graham Harrell as the Southern Cal offensive coordinator. And then Slovis transferred out and ended up at Pitt. Deshields transferred out and ended up at Georgia and now at West Virginia. And Graham Harrell now has transferred to West Virginia and is now the offensive coordinator for his former quarterback, but he also was the coordinator for that quarterback, for Slovis at Pitt. You're going to hear a lot about that because this is on a game day, and their whole panel love these kinds of storylines.
Interesting.
Of course, Pitt's favored.
As they should be.
Pitt last year went 11-3 and was the ACC champ. They had impressive wins over Clemson, who was a 10-2 team. They beat Wake Forest, which was an 11-3 team.
In the championship game.
In the championship game, they beat Tennessee, UNC, they beat UVA, and they beat Virginia Tech, and ended up winning the championship game. Now, in their bowl game, they lost to Michigan State, but their NFL quarterback, a fellow named Pickett, had already left. And their backup quarterback, who was a pretty good guy, got hurt in the first quarter, so we don't hold that against him.
If you're not in the playoffs anymore, it seems like half of these guys don't play in the bowl games. So you can't put a lot of stock in the bowl games anymore.
So Pitt took care of business, and they beat the people they wanted to beat. West Virginia struggled. They were 6-7, got clobbered in the bowl. It's in Pittsburgh. It's only natural Pittsburgh would be favored. Now that's the thumbs up for Pitt. Here's the thumbs down. The Pitt schedule was hardly impressive. 6 of their opponents had winning records. The rest had losing records. Of the 6 that had winning records, Pitt lost to 3 of them. So they only had 3 wins over teams with winning records, and they did it with an NFL quality quarterback named Kenny Pickett, who's in the NFL playing for the Deshields. And
the Blitnikoff award-winning wide receiver, Jordan Addison, who has transferred to USC of all places. Isn't that interesting?
Very good quarterback, very good receiver. Mr. Slovis stepping in with a brand new offensive coordinator replacing their offensive coordinator who went to Nebraska. Tell us what happened when he went to Nebraska.
Well, we just happened to catch a little bit of their game today. As a matter of fact, they played in Ireland against Northwestern. They were favored by 11. They lost 31-28. They did put 28 points up against the powerhouse Northwestern, but Whipple didn't seem to make a big impression upon this first game at Nebraska.
Whipple was the offensive coordinator for Pitt that was coordinating the NFL quarterback and the Blitnikoff receiver and running up a lot of scores. He didn't do so well at Nebraska. He just
it's only in one part.
But let's talk about some of the other positives, why Pitt should be favored, why Pitt should be excited. Their offensive line should be outstanding. They are returning a redshirt senior, a graduate transfer, a redshirt senior, and a redshirt senior across their offensive line, and they're pretty good 5 starters are coming back. Several of them have pro prospects. Number 77, Carter Warren, the left tackle, is 325 pounds. He started 14 games. He was all ACC second team, and he was the offensive lineman of the week against Clemson. Marcus Minor, their left guard, is 325 pounds, 6'4". He was a grad transfer from Maryland, and he did start 13 games last year. He was third team all ACC. Owen Drexel, the 305-pound center, got honorable mention in all ACC. Jake Cradle, their right guard, also all ACC honorable mention. He was injured, or else he might have done better. And right tackle, Gabe Hoy, is 6'6", 325 pounds. He's also a redshirt senior, and he was third team all ACC.
These are big, strong, older gentlemen. I mean, they're redshirt seniors. They're strong. They're experienced. They played together. They're going to be awfully good. In fact, the Pitt head coach said something along the lines, it might be the best offensive line he's ever coached. So that's a problem.
That's a plus. That's a thumbs up. On the other hand, the ACC was hardly a rough conference last year, and not one of these offensive linemen are preseason picks for making first string all ACC. So you go 11-3, you're going to get some kind of credit for what's going on, but it helps to have an NFL quarterback. We'll have to see whether or not they're as good as we're projected. Now, the new offensive coordinator, a fellow by the name of Signetti.
I recognize that name.
Why do you recognize that name, Jerry?
Didn't he coach with his dad or somewhere and coached at West Virginia for a few years and didn't have a whole lot of success?
Years ago, Frank Signetti, his father, was the head coach for West Virginia football, lost season after season, was replaced by Don Nalen, who turned the team around.
My first year there, 1980, as a matter of fact.
That'll.
I'm putting age on me. I'm sorry. We can edit that out, maybe.
This Signetti has kicked around in a number of teams, including in the NFL, and is back as an offensive coordinator. And he and the Pitt coach have said they're going to run the ball more. So we'll see if the offensive line can run the ball more.
Whether they're saying that's true or whether they're blowing smoke, we don't know. But
I'm not sure whether having a Signetti is a positive or a negative.
Well, I agree
we're gonna put it noted and let you guys decide. Now the other positive for Pitt is they're too deep at quarterback. Keldon Slovis is a senior transfer from UNC, and he started 26 games at USC. He passed for over 7,000 yards, 58 touchdowns, and he's probably heading to the NFL, although he was originally a 3-star. He also competed against our quarterback, J.T. Daniels. He took over when Daniels got hurt. Nick Patty is a senior. Slovis beat him out at Pitt for the starting job, and I saw Patty play in a couple of games. He can scramble, and he's very good. I think he's a very solid quarterback. So they're solid at quarterback, but they've lost an NFL quality quarterback, so they're going to take a drop off even if these guys are solid. What else is good for them? Well, they return a solid defensive line. Again, their defensive line has a redshirt senior, a redshirt junior, and 2 other redshirt seniors stepping in the line. Their defensive line finished 2nd in the nation for sacks and 5th in tackles for losses.
And big, strong seniors again, and they got a couple of guys there. Baldonado and Cansey are very good, very good.
And they're quick. And if I was to put a negative on it, I would say that last year they were frequently ahead with other teams having to pass, and everybody knew they had to pass. So these guys were flat out blitzing all the time. That's not to say they're not good. They're good. They're experienced. Habakkuk Baldonado is a defensive end. He was a second team all ACC. He played 14 games. And he had 9 sacks himself. He's a preseason Bednarik Award watch list for the best player. He had the highest PFF rating. All you nerds will know what that is. On the team, he's got quick hands. He's fast. And beside him is a guy named Kalijah Cansey. He's their defensive tackle at 280 pounds. He was a first team all ACC. He's the one that's won first team all ACC. And he was second on the team in sacks. Between the 2 of them, they had 25 tackles for losses. That's a frightening pair of defenders. no matter who you're playing.
I actually read that Baldonado does mixed martial arts too, and so that helps with his hand placement and his hand quickness. He'll be a tough guy to block, particularly if we have to throw the ball. He's not easy to block. So
They also have a pretty good defensive end in Deslin Alexander. He's 6'4", 275. He got honorable mention All ACC. He had a couple of 2 and 3 tackles for losses. So they're solid across there, and there's not much optimism in. There's not much to put that down. I will say their linebackers may be in a state of flux. They're shuffling people in and out. They've got a key linebacker named Dennis Servosia. He started 13 games. He was All ACC second team. He was twice linebacker of the week when they played Clemson and North Carolina. And when you get the honors against the good teams, you've done a good job. You got up to the game. Beyond that, though, they've got an awful lot of people coming and going. They've got Shane Simon, who is a linebacker they call a money linebacker. He played for Notre Dame and transferred in. But they've got a junior.
We won't hold that against him.
I will. Notre Dame, Pitt, that's really close.
It's kind of, yeah, that's pretty bad. I wouldn't like going either.
He's got a kid named Bengali Kamara actually listed in front of him, so he hasn't even taken over the slot yet. They have a star linebacker named Solomon Deshields. He's a redshirt sophomore, and he's fighting it out with a grad transfer named Wiltz, who was transferred from Missouri State. He has 1 season left. He's experienced, but he's actually listed as behind Deshields.
Right.
So if there's a weakness in their secondary, it's that their linebackers are in flux.
But much like us, we have Davis Mallinger as the spear, but then we also have Jasir Cox at the spear, and we got Mallinger listed as the starter. When we know Jasir Cox is probably going to be the player. Although, but I don't know if it's the same situation. But you got to think it's similar.
We know how that happens. Well, it's hard to get in to see what they're doing in their practice. You have to look through bars and parole officers and things like that.
Yeah, you got to have an ID.
Yeah. Now, they have experienced safeties. I don't know how good the safeties were, but they were certainly experienced just like the rest of their defense. Eric Hallett is a redshirt senior. He had 70 tackles and 3 interceptions with 9 breakups last year. He was honorable mention ACC. Brandon Hill started all 14 games. He had 2 interceptions, 6 breakups. He was All ACC second team, and he's a Jim Thorpe semifinalist. So their safeties are you want to stay away from, but their cornerbacks may be in flux. They're shifting too. They talk up an MJ Devonshire. He was a transfer. He's a junior. He had a high PFF grade last year, but he's listed as behind another redshirt senior named Marquise Williams. I don't know enough about it to say that they're still battling it. Right. And the other cornerback, Rashad Battle, was a safety last year. He's listed as ahead of a senior called A.J. Woods, so they're still battling that out. And if you listen to their coach, the coach says they make mistakes. That's what they're trying to correct. That's what we hope we develop to take advantage of. They're making mistakes. We've got the same problem.
They gave up a lot of passing yards last year and a lot of points last year. And they were not real easy to run the football against, but people did get a lot of yardage and a lot of touchdowns against this defense.
Funny you should mention runs. They have very high hopes for their running game. That's what they want to do this year. They have Israel Abanaconda,
very good,
who is a 215-pound junior. He led Pitt in the rushing last year with 651 yards. Behind him is Vincent Davis. He had 593 yards. And then there's a sophomore who had 102 carries for 505 yards, 5 touchdowns in 12 games last year.
You're going to see a different backs. They're not going to be just one guy. They're going to put different people in the game different times.
And they're excited about it. But last year they had one of the worst running attacks in the ACC. They finished 11th out of the conference at 149 rushing yards per game. Nobody was near 700 yards, much less 1,000. So, and that was even with an NFL passer and receiver that you would think would have opened up the running game. The very early test is whether or not that experienced offensive line can open holes and those running backs can run. If they can run on West Virginia and other teams, they're going to be back again. They've got their fingers crossed with their receivers. They lost 5 of their top 7 receivers. So they've got Jared Wayne back. He was consistent number 2 receiver behind their star last year, and he had a number of nice catches. And then they ran out and got a guy named Kanata Mumfield. He transferred from Akron, and like other transfers, he did well at Akron, but that's a different level of competition. We don't know how he's going to stack up against ACC or Big 12 or other teams. They also have Jared Means. He was a transfer in from Louisiana Tech. He had 11 touchdowns. He played 11 games, had 2 touchdowns last season, but none of them are Jordan Addison. None of them are close to that level. So conventional wisdom would say don't look for a lot of passing. Now, what should you watch? The battles I would suggest you keep an eye on is Baldonado and Cansey, the defensive end and defensive tackle for Pitt. Those are the ones that get all the sacks. Can the West Virginia offensive line control those guys and give J.T. Daniels time to throw? Because if our offensive line is as good as we hope they are, then Wyatt Milam, James Gamitter, Zach Frazier, Doug Nestor, and Brandon Yates will keep those fellas out, and J.T. Daniels will pick them apart. But watch number 8 and number 87 when Pitt is rushing the passer. Those are the guys we've got to stop. Can Pitt open holes with their offense? Watch Marcus Minor, their left guard, number 55, Owen Drexel, their center, number 60, and Jake Cradle, number 53, their right guard. That interior line is going to have to not just protect the quarterback, they're going to have to open holes. What are they up against? They're up against Jordan Jefferson, number 96 for West Virginia, as the nose guard. He has a good game. Pitt's not running the ball. Behind him is Lee Koba, number 8, and if he has a good game, they're not running the ball. And of course, our star is Dante Stills, number 55, and I don't think they're going to run on Dante, but that's the matchup when they're on offense and we're on defense. Now, down, go ahead.
Forgive me for correcting, but Jordan Jefferson's 95, not number 96, and he's the big, strong nose tackle. And that, I think that, as much as anything, is going to be a huge, whether they can move him out of there. Remember, we had Mesidor play in the middle last year, who was good, but he was more of a quick, fast guy to try to beat people with his speed on the line so he could get taken out of plays. Jefferson is a big, strong guy that you don't know.
One of the strongest on the team.
Exactly, and so to plug up holes so they can't run the football. So
you're right. Vesterinen is 96. I had 95 written down. Said it wrong. Jordan Jefferson's 300 pounds.
Yes.
Koba is 230 pounds, and Dante is 265 pounds. Opposite them are the left guard at 325, the center at 305, and the guard at 305. So we're giving away some weight in those matchups. It'll be a good physical battle. Now, downfield, there'll be some battles too. Their receivers, Jared Wayne, this new receiver, Monkfield, and Jared Means, the transfer from Louisiana, are all going to be testing our secondary and our defenders. Can Lance Dixon, number 5, Charles Woods, number 23, Wesley McCormick, number 11, Jazier Cox, number 7, maybe Marcus Floyd at 24 and Aubrey Burks at 22, control these 3 receivers? If they can, then they're limited to a running game. It will be a very low-scoring game.
I'll sound like a broken record before this season's over when you hear us predicting these games, but really what most of these games come down to is who can control the line of scrimmage, the offensive line versus the defensive line. If you can run the football and control the line of scrimmage, you win most of the time, provided you don't make a lot of mistakes. We played to a stalemate against Maryland last year at that game, and but we didn't get beat on the line of scrimmage. We made mistakes. It's a tall order. I'm going to tell you right now, it's a tall order. Of course, I think we win, but I think it's going to take a good effort to win this game.
I will say up front that most of the conventional people, game day people and the like, they don't know how to predict this game. You can't base it on last year. Those people are gone. Quarterbacks have changed. Receivers have changed. Offensive coordinators have changed. Just because these people wear the same colored uniform doesn't mean they're the same team. Nobody will know until the game starts. But I will give the Pitt head coach kudos. He says they have to take care of the football. And I think he's right. Special teams and turnovers can make the difference in this game if both of these teams play up to their expectations. I don't think it's going to be a rivalry game for the players until they get started. I think it's a big game for them. But I don't have the guts to tell you what's going to happen until I see it. I'll have a very good feel for it after the first quarter.
I'll tell you how I think it's going to pan out if you care to hear. I think Pitt gets off to a fast start and gets ahead of us early on in the game. But I think that we grind and come back and win this game because I don't think they're going to be able to throw the football like they could against teams last year and score a lot of points because I think our secondary will be a surprise to a lot of people. I don't think they're going to be able to run the football like they want to do against our defense because we're pretty good at stopping the run. And so it's going to come down to can we move the football against their defense. Their defense is not as good as ours, in my opinion. I think we will. I think we win it on a late touchdown or a late field goal and seal it with an interception.
There's no reason to believe our offensive line is better this year just because they're a year older. There's no reason to believe that Pitt's offensive line can open holes for a run just because they defended on the pass last year. There's no way for me to predict it. I will say this, if all things pan out the way they expected, and we better hope that they can't run the ball. If they can run the ball, we've got problems. If we can run the ball, they've got problems. But I suspect our weakness is going to be our inexperienced secondary, and if Slovis can pick that secondary apart like Pickett could, then I would give the edge to Pitt. Right now, I think it's a toss-up. Frankly, I'm going to go with the Mountaineers.
It'll be a tough one to win up there in the first game. It's going to be a lot of fun, but I think we win it.
By the way, we never have won a game when game day came, if you guys are into correlations. So you need to run them out of town. We'll see you after the game.
And we'll review it, and we'll let you know what we will hold us to what we